Today's bike of the day is a Yamaha TZM50R, and it's iconic because it's basically a better version of your childhood. I have some buddies that grew up on Yamaha YSR 50s because those were sold in the United States. Well, this was the successor and it was not sold here. So it's rare, it's cool, and we're about to take it for a spin.
Alrighty, so one of the things I want to do during this video is explain some of the differences that Yamaha implemented between the YSR and this TZM. And I get to start that with the starter itself, because normally on a YSR you'd have a Kickstarter here, but on this bike, progress, we have a magic button. There we go. And away we go. So the other big thing is what you hear right now. It is that engine. On a YSR, it is a 49cc air-cooled motor. Here though, it is liquid-cooled. So this definitely an upgrade in that sense. This specific bike has an aftermarket pipe as well. But Yamaha claimed about 7 horsepower with this bike. And the liquid cooling also helps it rev a little bit higher. A YSR makes its power, like peak power, around 8,200. Here we go. So again, a YSR makes peak power around 8,200 or 8,500 or so, but here you can see this red line's up to 12 and peak power is around 10,500 RPM or so. So in addition to liquid cooling, you also get better brakes, better suspension, the bodywork. Let me go back to the brakes, sorry. On a YSR, the rear brake is a drum. Here you get a disc, so you get discs on both sides. From a suspension standpoint, it's a little bit stronger, a little bit firmer. And then that's awesome. And then from a bodywork standpoint, the only thing that they shared with the YSR was the tank. Everything else is new, or at least different. The front fairing comes from a TZR50, which is a much bigger bike. Those use like 17-inch tires. But really what's nice about this is it has all the things that makes a YSR charming, but it's just a little bit better. And it's much more rare because, again, you couldn't get these in the US. Somewhat optimistically, someone has added a sticker or a decal to the dash there to give it extra range on the speed. So I mean, this would make for a pretty awesome pit bike, or even a go-kart track type of bike. Or if you're really cool and live in a state that isn't as mean as California, you could get yourself a plate, because it has the lights, has the mirrors, has the turn signals. We'll do that test we like to do on iconic bikes and see if the horn works. There you go. So also helps when you're in first gear. Oh, that is great. We've actually sold a couple of these before. One was a Telcor version in 1994. Yamaha made a limited run of about 1,500 of these with a special paint job to match a larger race bike that they were campaigning at the time. And then we also sold a custom one, or one with a custom paint job that reflected a shop from Japan called Clever Wolf Racing. I'm gonna go through here. This one has a stock paint job in white and radical red. I mean, the motor's got enough pep. The brakes aren't nearly as bad as I thought they'd be. And honestly, the suspension's not even that stiff. It's kind of comfortable. I fit on this okay. I like it. Alright, we got our buddies from Hall Bikes here doing a pickup. Might check that out in a second. He likes what he sees. That's right.
Well, that concludes that little test ride there. One of the things I didn't get to talk about is why this bike exists. And so Yamaha originally comes out with the YSR 50 and 80 in 1986, and they bring that to the US market. It performs well. It's really, in a sense, what started the mini bike racer replica kind of category. But Honda follows up with their NSR 50 and NSR 80, and that is just objectively a better bike, particularly in the motor, because they went with liquid cooling. So 1993 comes around, and that's when Yamaha decides to put up a better challenge against the NSR, and this is the bike that they do it with. But in the US, we don't get this bike, so that's part of why I'm very excited that I got the chance to try this today. It's very rare, it's very cool, and I gotta say, there's the stuff that you can tell just by looking at it. Like, it looks like just a mini version of a sport bike. You know it's gonna be fun. It's got a small, peppy two-stroke motor in it. The thing I was most blown away about when riding this for myself was the suspension. And what I mean by that was, normally when you're on a bike this small, it's underdamped. When you get an average sized American on it, it just wants to kind of collapse on itself. But this actually held up really well, and even on the usual bumps that I encounter in this area, it was an excellent combination between being firm enough to provide performance and feedback, but also supple enough that it doesn't hurt you when you're going over the bump. So that was my big takeaway from this from a riding dynamic standpoint. So even though Yamaha did make some upgrades, eventually, really at the end of the day, Honda did sell more of the NSRs. They were more popular worldwide. Well, that was back then. Now all it means it's harder to find one of these, which means it's more rare at your local meet or your mini bike meetup or whatever it might be. This particular example has 10,709 miles on the dash, or kilometers I should say on the dash. So that's roughly, I don't know, 6,400, 6,500 miles on it. It's got a couple of aftermarket upgrades. It's got an exhaust here, an NR Magic exhaust. Can't say I've ever heard of that. We've also got a Daytona temp gauge, which is why it was sort of crudely wired in there, but that's pretty valuable for just make sure that your cylinder is doing all right. Speaking of which, the cylinder is actually a Daytona Mini. That has not suffered time well. There's definitely some corrosion on the outside of it, but at least based on the test ride, everything internally is looking all right. So who's gonna buy this? I don't know, but you'll have the chance to do so on our auction site really soon. It'd be a fun pit bike. It would be the perfect thing if you already have a YSR 50 or 10 of them. I know mini bike guys are really nuts for these things. This could be a great way to set off your collection with something a little bit different. If you have any questions about the bike, the history, our auctions, whatever it might be, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. As always, thanks for watching and letting me get to enjoy some cool bikes that you normally wouldn't see around here in the US.